Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2020 Indiana Black Expo's Minority Small Business Series, presented by Key Bank. And today's topics is Indiana's recovery initiatives, Indiana's rapid recovery initiatives. Get that straight there. My name is Abdul-Hakim Shabazz. I'll be your host for this session this afternoon with the law firm of Lewis & Wilkins, and also to the website indypolitics.org. Indiana Black Expo is celebrating 50 years as an organization, and for 50 years, IBE has provided technical support, resources, training, and procurement opportunities for small and minority businesses to help them build capacity. The work would not be possible without our sponsors, our generous sponsors. And so please help me thanking our general presenting sponsor, Key Bank, for their leadership and communities to small business. Also, I'd like to thank AT&T, Carrier, Cummings, Delta Faucet, Indianapolis Airport Authority, One America, Visit Indy, and Indianapolis Power and Light. I'd also like to thank our series partners, the Indianapolis Recorder, the Indy Chamber, Engaging Solutions, the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, the City of Indianapolis, and the Indiana Department of Administration, and the State of Indiana. Now, before we start, just a few housekeeping notes. First of all, if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible before our session ends. And also, toward the end of our session, there'll be a link to a session survey in the chat box that we ask you to fill it out, and we'd love to get your thoughts and your feedback. So it'll help us with planning future webinars. At this time, I'd like to take some time to introduce our host, Ms. Tanya McKenzie, President of Indiana and CEO of Indiana Black Expo this year. Tanya.
Hey, Abdul, thank you so much. And welcome again to today's session titled Indiana's Rapid Recovery Initiatives. I have the honor of introducing our governor of our great state. Eric Holcomb is the 51st governor of Indiana. A lifelong Hoosier, Governor Holcomb is a veteran of the United States Navy, served as the state's 51st lieutenant governor, was a trusted advisor to both Governor Mitch Daniels and Senator Dan Coates, and was a former state chairman of the Indiana Republican Party. He was elected governor in November 2016. Already, Governor Holcomb is moving our state forward. He led the way for the largest long-term infrastructure investment in our state's history with the 20-year Next Level Roads program, which will invest $4.7 billion for roads and bridges in the first 5 years alone. To meet our state's rapidly changing workforce needs, he unveiled the Next Level Jobs program to help get more Hoosiers into high-demand, high-wage jobs. Governor Holcomb has been a great supporter of Indiana Black Expo and its initiatives and its mission, and we are glad to have him with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Eric Holcomb.
Hello, Tanya. Hello, Abdul. Good to be with you both this afternoon. I don't know if you can see, but I've got a shirt that you all gave me a few years ago. So I've been out and about the state, but I have landed with you both safely.
Nice to see you, Governor.
Good to see you both. Thanks, Tanya, for everything, for your leadership, and for, and maybe Abdul will get into this in a few, but thanks for being there during this time.
All right, Governor, why don't you go ahead and just say a couple of words if you want, then we just go straight to the questions, or we write to the questions, however you want to do it, sir.
Throw your pitch. Let's get right at it. I know your time is pressed, and I think I've got Director Fred Payne on my heels, so he's excited and happy to share a lot of pretty important information as well.
Not a problem, sir. Just a reminder, folks, you have a question for the governor, be sure to type it in the Q&A chat box. We'll get that to him. Governor, first question, running a business isn't as easy, and doing it with COVID-19 presents unprecedented challenges for small business owners. Can we talk about your approach to this crisis, particularly how it relates to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, it's you allude to it in your question that this has been a challenge on everyone, and so therefore it's hit the business community hard, even small businesses harder, but has an adverse effect no matter how large or small your business is, in the supply chain, where you get your supplies and your workforce, all things above. And so our approach has really been from the outset to first and foremost understand that relationship. This is about navigating our way through this in terms of, on both sides of the ledger, in terms of lives and livelihoods. Obviously, our small business community is the backbone of our state. So we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to collect and distribute good data. So good data in, good data out, share it, be very transparent, make sure folks have access to that information, and they can make better decisions as well. The sharing, you know, that I kind of gloss right over that, sharing the good data, but that's our back on track plan. That's a lot of work goes into that, not just to keep up to speed, but multi-agency. This is a real joint statewide operation where everything is on one topic, feeding into kind of that command and control center, and then getting it right back out as in real time. And so we've turned to, as I mentioned to Tanya, we've turned to the Indiana Black Expo. To make sure that folks don't just have access, but they have real awareness of what's out there that can help them get not just, you know, to the end of the year or close the books, but really hour by hour, day by day.
Second question for you, Governor, is how are you working to provide small business with the resources they need during this challenging time, and what resources are available?
Yeah, and we've kind of, on that front, we've tried to streamline this as well and make this kind of as many one-stop shops as we can. So much of the resources that we have, it's really a toolbox, you know, organized by the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, and also working with the Indiana Small Business Development Center. So all of those resources, all of that support. The number one place I would recommend people go is to the IEDC, you know, and shop around there for the different programs. But there are a whole number of programs, and we have, you know, obviously I want to place credit where credit's due and thank our federal partners, because we've got some state resources and then we've got some federal resources, CARES Act dollars that have flowed from the federal government to the state. That in addition to funds that directly flowed to Marion County, but we've set aside different buckets, and I can just tell you there's an EASE program, which is the economic, you know, it's a stabilizing fund basically. And what we're trying to do to help people is understand where they are today, understand where we want everyone to be tomorrow. And so how can we operationally and how can we modernize our functions for our small businesses and for our manufacturing, two of the real drivers of our economy. So there are tens of millions of dollars and that are there for small businesses and specifically for minority and women-owned businesses. So one such fund, which is $37 million, we've carved out. That's for all small businesses, but we've specifically set aside $5 million. Marion County has where we sit right now today. I'm assuming you're in Marion County, Tanya and Abdul. I am now. But we've set aside $5 million for minority and women-owned businesses as well. So has Marion County. And then we've also set up a PPE directory, because we heard very early on, very quickly, we were one of the first states to set up a PPE marketplace first, and then it kind of morphed or transformed into a directory. And we've already sent out, again, tens of thousands of, you know, actually we went over, I think the last figure I reported was 1.17 million pieces of equipment like face shields and hand sanitizer and face masks, et cetera, to these smaller businesses, so 150 employees or less. And so what we've tried to do, again, is make sure funding is available. Again, iedc.in.gov, and you can go figure out or, you know, look at what applies to me and my business, the sector that I'm in, and the help that I need, whether it's training, counseling, financial counseling for small businesses, free. So we've set aside $3.7 million there too. And so really, what I don't want people to feel is like they're drowning in the sea of opportunity, because there are all these different programs out there. And if you're not tapping into it, just understand someone is, and it's there for you for this time.
This is an interesting question. It's a little bit to do with the census, but also to do with small business and economic development. The question is, what is your administration doing to make sure that the African American community is included in the 2020 census, especially since the cutoff date has been cut back to September 30th, saying that we could lose millions of dollars in federal funding that could help with minority economic development?
Yeah, I've mentioned this a few times, more than a few times on our press conferences, that we have to make sure that everyone is answering that door and answering those surveys, answering those questions, documenting exactly how many folks we have throughout the whole state of Indiana, because it's to your point, and we'll continue to make sure that we're increasing the awareness of just how important this is. You're right, it's tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The shot clock's ticking, and the information that we share with our federal partners, with the federal government that have to account for all this, is going to have a decades-long effect on how much and where dollars go to help serve, quite frankly, the people of our state. So we're pleading with folks not to leave anything on the table or on the field. Make sure that information, when you're contacted via mail or door, et cetera, and they'll be 6 feet back and they'll be in a mask and they'll be physical distancing, but make sure that information gets forwarded. It's there for our benefit.
Another question, Governor, that I have here. Here's one. First, I'd like to thank the Governor Holcomb for supporting the programs of the Indiana Black Expo. I'd like to ask the Governor if he plans on visiting Gary in 2021. If so, what can not-for-profits do to make businesses aware of the state's minority initiatives?
Yeah. Well, yes, I will, but I'll be in Gary before 2021, and not just passing through, by the way. And we've got a few months left in this year, and I want to end this year strong. We're going to have some more good news in Gary. A lot of good things are happening in Gary, quite frankly. And this is a part of our state, that quadrant, the Northwest quadrant, the region is really, I've always said this, it just packs a powerful punch, and it has so much potential, and even more so now that as businesses, as residents are starting to redefine quality of life, redefine the cost of living and what it means to them, congestion, all things considered, all the above. We're in the state of Indiana starting to experience, our phones are ringing and people want to do business. I always say the grass is greener on our side on the border. And so being that close to one of the biggest economies in the country sets Gary up in a strong position to continue to kind of redefine what the future looks like, not just for Gary, but for that region. And then therefore, it's a powerful engine for our state. So I get fired up every time I get up that way in the region, quite frankly. And that quadrant, as I talk about it, it's a diverse quadrant as well. So you can go not, 20 minutes out and you're in rural Indiana. So you've got urban, suburban, rural, you've got it all. And now we've got to go sell that to the rest of the country and the world.
This question is from Faulkner. He says, thank you, Governor, for your leadership and extension of the Ready to Restart program. Can you tell me the status of the grant disbursement for the Ready to Restart program in Marion County?
Yes, and I bet you if you're honing specifically on just the funding and the resources that are available, and for Marion County, we look at this as one Indiana, obviously for all, and that Restart program is tapping into this exact moment in our history. And we see this as, a huge opportunity to redefine your, not just position in life, but your aspirations and your goals, and to be able to realize those. We know that skilling up is a big part of ending up in a different position. So if you've lost your job, if you're waiting to get your job back, now is the time. There's no time like the present and we've got the resources here through these various programs. Fred may get into this too, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but kind of next level jobs is another key area that we're seeing. We saw a lot of success going into this downturn. The first just my perspective, when we started this, the first 3 years and 2 months before COVID-19, we saw a lot of success. Like over 16,000 people were taking advantage. That's in Marion County, taking advantage of those different programs where the state of Indiana says, if you go get credentials or you go get certificates that express your expertise in an area. And oh, by the way, the jobs are there. These are high wage, high demand jobs that can be filled right now. We're not waiting on these. We'll pay for it. The state of Indiana will pay for it. And so skilling up, these new collar jobs, so to speak, they're not white collar jobs, they're not blue collar jobs, they're new collar jobs. And to be in a state like Indiana and Marion County, where we're growing our IT sector, where we're growing our high-tech sector, where we're growing advanced manufacturing all over the state, but here, since you asked about this area, now's the time to take advantage of those programs. By the way, all these programs that we've set up are designed as if the state of Indiana is the concierge. And so they're going to evaluate, and specifically in this caller's question, they're going to evaluate what your skill set is, what your passion is, what skills you need to obtain, how to get on that path. They're going to be able to help direct you to a whole portfolio of assistance, meaning it could be an employer for sure. It could be a training provider. It could be a pastor or church leaders. It's kind of all the above, and it's helping you on your next step in, so to speak, get off on that right first step and get on your pathway to success, whether that be on that program or next level jobs with employers or employees. Can I filibuster here for just 2 more minutes? I feel like I'm not going to take a breath, or me a breath. We're also in terms of making it as simple as possible. Start out. That's oh, by the way, that's the same thing as our 211 service. So if you're struggling out there and you're anxious or worried about your situation, 211 is your port of entry. It is your one place to go first, and then they help connect you as a concierge. Same thing on workforce and training programs. It is a get in that portal, go into that next level jobs, for example, it's about a 3 or 5 click process online. And then DWD, Fred Payne will talk about this, but DWD will then circle back with you and get you connected to say, here's your different options. You're interested in going high tech. You're interested in tripling your salary from where you are right now. Here's how to do it. And what are you most interested in? And it could be advanced manufacturing, it could be construction, it could be ag bioscience, et cetera. But we've got so many, the good news is we have so many people, we have so many job openings, and we have the ability right now, we just doubled down. We just put $50 million more into a program that was uber successful at skilling people up. Again, you put in the time, we'll put in the money. And that's really going to be the secret to where we end up on the other side of this. But I don't want anybody to think they have to push pause in their life right now because of what's going on around us. Actually, now might be the best time ever to skill up so that when we get on the other side of this, or sooner, as we're living and managing our way through it, all of a sudden, you've put yourself up in 2 or 3 income brackets.
Final question for you, Governor, because I know your time is limited here. This is from Ike Martin. Wants to know, we are in Richmond and can't seem to connect with the state resources. Today we haven't been able to get even a dime of any help. Could you provide me with a contact point for those of us not in Indianapolis?
For what was he specifically asking about? Not a dime for help for business?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. About 7 letters or 8 letters, iedc.in.gov. And they're going to, now if that's about help for business, and go to that website first. You might do that because then you can really learn, but that's that, portal. And that is where those dimes are all rolled up, and then how they get distributed. They're there for the caller. And if the caller is asking about training, whether he wants to train up some of his employees, again, through Next Level Jobs, the state of Indiana will pay employers $5,000 a person up to $50,000 to train people up if they're keeping them over 6 months. And there are businesses all over the state, small businesses all over the state. taking advantage of this. And if you're an employee or someone, you're not the employer, but your employee, we'll pay you. We'll put the dime in to pay you to go get skilled up and attach you or connect you to those jobs. There's 93,000 open jobs right now. In addition to that, through the IEDC, we're at about 105,000 jobs over this during my term through the IEDC. So those are jobs that are coming in, over a year, 2 year, 3 year period. Last year, the average salary, the average wage for those jobs was $28.60 an hour. So these are not these are careers. I say jobs. These are careers where you can continue to go back to Ivy Tech or Vincennes University or through a Work One training program, and you can get another certificate and another certificate and another credential and continue to skill up. And, it's you determining your own destiny, not someone else.
All right. Well, it is 2:21. And thank you, Governor Holcomb, for your time and energy and effort today. And my friend, I will see you tomorrow at 2:30 on our Wednesday appointment.
Same time, same channel, same bad channel. See you tomorrow, Abdul. Thanks, Tanya.
Take care, Governor. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Governor Eric Holcomb. Next, I would like to introduce the Department of Workforce Development Commissioner, Fred Payne. Commissioner Payne will provide us with an overview of the Indiana Rapid Recovery Initiative and Skill Up Program. A little bit about Fred Payne's history. He joined Indiana Workforce Development, DWD, in December 2017 as commissioner, and to be appointed by Governor Eric Holcomb. The commissioner serves as DWD's chief executive. Mr. Payne came to DWD from Honda Manufacturing of Indiana as chief administrator, where he was responsible for business divisions, which consists of all support functions, including legal, IT, accounting and finance, planning, corporate affairs, facilities, administration, inclusion, and diversity. Fred does just about everything there. I can sympathize with you, my friend. Also, Mr. Payne served a variety of leadership roles, including general counsel, secretary, and compliance officer. So, Commissioner Payne, the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you, Abdul. First, I'd like to thank Indiana Black Expo for all of the support to Indiana that it's given over the past 50 years. And thanks for putting together these virtual Zoom calls to make sure that you are a portal for getting information out to the community. That's vitally important at any time, but specifically right now, as we go through the COVID-19 environment, it's even more important that we get information out to the community. I do have a little bit of information that I'll share, and I think we can ask that the Black Expo make some of the information that I'll share available to you later on. And so I'm going to really talk through these slides. Are not things that I'm going to talk from, but they're just there for information for individuals who are listening to me in case I talk a little bit fast, so you can refer to the information as it's on the screen. As we move forward in the slides, what I want to do is to make sure that I'm answering, I leave a little bit of time at the end to make sure that I'm answering any questions that individuals have. And if I can't answer one of your questions, I'll make sure that I get the answer to Black Expo and they can route it to you a little bit later. So if we can move ahead to the next slide, what I like to do again is thank the Indiana Black Expo. We wanted to make sure that we call them out because when you have strong forces in the community that's giving information and that's being sort of a big driver of information and community engagement and awareness, we want to make sure that we're calling it out. And as the Black Expo is one of our strongest partners. And the next slide, what we'll see is really what Governor talked about when it comes to next level jobs. Back in about 2017, when I came into this role, we were just starting and just kicking off next level jobs. And the whole purpose behind next level jobs is to make sure that we are providing opportunities for each person and each business in Indiana to reach his or her next level. And that person's next level is individual to him, it's individual to that business. So there are two sides to this coin when we talk about next level. Next level, one side is employer driven. And that is where we have our employer training grant program. The other side of that coin is our workforce ready grant program. And that's an individual driving his or her training. And I'll talk about each one of those in detail here today. So if we can move on to the next slide here. And The reason why we couched a lot of this information on Next Level Jobs, we put it in as a part of our rapid recovery for a better future, because this is really going to propel the training and the resources that we had available for Next Level Jobs. We'll be using the CARES Act money to actually be an extension of our Next Level Jobs program so that we can reach more people and more businesses, and we can provide them with more resources. But we're also making sure that we tweak a few of the requirements of Next Level Jobs so that we can quickly deploy these resources to individuals, and they can get the best out of them the quickest way possible while we work our way through this pandemic. So as you see here, our ultimate goal is to help all Hoosiers take the next step. So now I'll talk a little bit about the first side of that coin, on the employer training grant side. And this is the side that really helps employers to skill up their most valuable asset, which is an individual. And under our employer training grant program, this is a program that offsets the cost that employers have when it comes to training. It reimburses employers for training or retraining new or incumbent employees. We can move to the next slide. So traditionally, our employer training grant program provided up to $5,000 reimbursement for training for current employees or new employees. And new employees had to be retained for about 6 months. An employer can utilize this program up to $50,000 per employer. Now, when it comes to the incumbent employees, those employees had to see some sort of a wage gain once they completed the training. And so what happens is an individual, an employer, would go into an agreement with the DWD and with our business service consultant, and they'll help them work through these different training programs or skill sets that they think that they need to increase for their employees. Now, as I mentioned, this is a traditional point of view. This is what happened for Next Level Jobs until now. If you can move to the next slide. Now, as a result of the CARES Act money, I mentioned that we sort of beefed up, we included or we added more money so that we can reach more employees and more employers. So with the CARES Act money, we've doubled the amount of reimbursable funding available for employers. So historically, that amount of money tapped out at $50,000. Now under the CARES Act, with that extension, it goes up to $100,000. And we've also dedicated funding specifically directed at minority and women-owned businesses. And what's also key here is we've waived that 6-month requirement for new employees through the end of December. So now the program is simply this. We have $5,000 that's available to train or retrain employees, up to $100,000 per employer for that program. And there's no requirement for the employees to be there for 6 months. Now, you may ask, well, what types of jobs are eligible for the training program? There are more than 100 occupations that are eligible for the ETG or the Employer Training Grant reimbursement. But the training must align to certain approved occupations, and there's a variety of them that we consider high wage, high demand jobs, all the way from bookkeepers and accounting and auditing clerks to CDL drivers to machinists. So a person can go to nextleveljobs.org, and it will take them through the list, the occupational list, and it will give a variety of information. And so if you can move to the next slide, it shows you that we have partnered with a company called 180 Skills, and it provides over 700 plus online job skills training. So this is an online platform, and individuals can go to this and they can get some skill training, and they can receive certifications online through 180 Skills. So we partner with 180 Skills to make sure that we can maximize the opportunities that we have available today. Sometimes there's a limitation to the number of training providers and the training that employers have available to them. And we wanted to make sure that we were maximizing that system as well. And so we have over 100,000 free licenses for these programs. So individuals or companies can go online and see what training that they would need for their employees, and we will pay for that, that training. Now, the application process is pretty simple, as shown here on our next slide. And what we want to do is kind of click through this next slide, maybe click 3 times. One more time, and one more. This shows how easy it is to apply for the employer training grant program. The company can go to nextleveljobs.org and then click on Indiana Employers, and it will take you through the application process. Now, we've had applications to go all the way through the process, and the company get a signed agreement within 24 hours. So it's a pretty quick process. And I want to kind of pause here and kind of tell you how we got to this point. Because when we first started the program, it was $2,500 per employee up to $25,000 per employer. And we got feedback from the employer community that said, hey, look, when we fill out this training form that's required, it's long. Maybe a large company may have a dedicated staff to fill out these forms, but we don't, speaking to small businesses. So what we did was we went back to the drawing board, and we provided pretty much a small, only the information that's needed for these training programs to be filled out, and we refined that process. But we also refined the process and added the additional $2,500 for training. Employers had indicated that even though $2,500 is a good support for us, but generally the training may cost a little bit more than that, which is why we added another $2,500 to the per person training, and it moved up to $5,000. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that to let you know that we do listen to you, and we listen to the business community and how we deliver the services that we have. If you can go to the next slide. Now, what ultimately happens, you can click one more time. What ultimately happens here, once the training is complete, that employer sends an invoice to the DWD for the cost of that training and all of the bills that are associated with that training. They provide us with that invoice. We provide the payment for those services. So that's kind of how it works. Employer goes to the website, fills out the information that's needed. We end up getting back to the employer with what we call a services contract or an agreement. The employer has the training completed by their employee. They submit an invoice to us. We reimburse them up to $5,000 per employee. So that's really the resource that we have that we're engaging directly with employers on. But there's another one that directly helps the individual, which is the other side of the coin. And if you move to the next slide, I'll talk about that pretty quickly. You can click forward. We share information that really provides free or virtually free training to individuals in high-wage, high-demand job areas. Let's say an individual is in this COVID environment right now, and he and she had a job, and now that job may be gone away. And their employer told them that they're going to transition their business to something else, and they now need computer coders. Well, that individual can go to our eligible training provider list under our Workforce Ready grant, and they can end up getting a training as a computer coder, and we will completely pay for that training. Excuse me. So that's the way that our Workforce Ready grant works on the certification side of the house. So I'm going to get a little bit technical here because there are 2 ways that this program pays out. If an individual goes and they want to get some type of certification that's short of a degree, then we end up paying that directly to that training provider, whether it's Vincennes, Ivy Tech, or some other training provider. If an individual goes on and wants to get some training that leads to a degree from either Ivy Tech or Vincennes, then the Workforce Ready Grant picks up the last dollar. And this is how that works. The institution will calculate all of the aid, financial aid, or other sources of payment that the person is going to get, and whatever is left over, the Workforce Ready Grant picks up the remainder. So as we round this out and we go to the next slide, one last resource that we have available, you can go to the next slide. One last resource that we have available for employers is helping them to design an apprenticeship program or a work-based learning program, and we help them partner with educational institutions. We help businesses partner with educational institutions, or educational institutions partner with businesses, so that they can train the individuals, and it gives them a pipeline for employees in the future. As we found that that's one of the resources that employers tend to lack sometimes, is a pipeline of employees. So if you can move forward with the next slide. So that's really our state Earn and Learn program under our Office of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeship. I want to make sure that we're leaving a little bit of time for some questions. So I'll just stop here and you can kind of move to the next slide. You can continue on and move. Yes, this is good. We'll end up right here. And this kind of lets you know where some of the training is available and some of the people that you can contact. Specifically, this slide talks about some of the adult education pieces that we have available for people who who did not complete their high school education, and that new job requires that high school diploma or equivalency, and they can also receive some of those certifications that I talked about earlier. So I turn it back over to you, Abdul, if you want to source some questions.
Yeah, the first question is a company or business eligible to apply for the employer training grant more than once in a year, or is it over once you've used up the $100,000 training reimbursement?
Yeah, that's a very good question. A company can apply multiple times, but they can only use up to the $100,000 through the end of December this year. But in our normal cycle, our normal program, a company can only apply once per year, and that's our program year. Our program year begins July 1 and runs through the end of June. So in a calendar year, technically, an employer can apply twice. So for example, if an employer applied in January of 2020 and they utilized their maximum benefit, and then in July, because that's a new program year, they can re-up and start using additional funding then. So only once in a program year, which is June through July, but possibly twice a year in a calendar year.
Another question, and this one, I think it should be in your bailiwick, but not, we'll have to forward it on. Where can a newly established business owner receive free consulting for marketing, social media management, and podcast training, website design, etc.?
Well, that information can be found over with the IEDC, unless if we're talking about an employer who's trying to train an individual in one of those areas and they want to get some training that's going to help their business and it falls within one of those occupational codes, then they can actually come to us and we can help find them a training provider.
Another question, and this one goes back to the $100,000. When you have multiple businesses within your organization, each one with a different FEIN number, are you limited to 100,000 total, or is it 100,000 for each of those FEINs?
Okay, so on that, we've limited the number of federal ID numbers to 24, because we have organizations that may have multiple locations within the state. and they may have multiple names for one bit, for different businesses. So we've capped that at 24 FEINs. So if you are a large corporation and say you have 24 locations and each one of those locations is incorporated separately, then you could apply for each one of those locations. But if you have 68 locations and 68 different numbers, then you're capped at the 24.
This one is from Gene. Gene says, I have a recidivism program designed to help release felons make an honest living. I'd like to know if there are any funds available for these types of groups.
We have a program we've actually moved last year called our Hoosier Initiative for Reentry program that we ran here at the DWD for a number of years. We realigned that program with the Department of Corrections because what our program did was it connected individuals to those job resources after they were released. But what we found was that when an individual is incarcerated and they receive a certification or certificate that gives them the skills for a job, and they were connected prior to leaving prison, then there was a lower recidivism rate, and they actually left prison with a higher wage job. So that information and that program is now attached inside the Department of Corrections, and that they can reach out to the DOC to get information on that higher program.
The next two questions both go to employee and employee training. This one is, I send my employees off-site for specialized training on occasion, sometimes even out of state. Can these sort of costs, training costs, be reimbursed?
Yes, those training costs will be reimbursed. Essentially, what we're reimbursing an employer for is any cost associated with them training that employee. They don't have to do the training themselves. They can outsource the training, which many employers do. So to answer that question, yes, they can send them out of state to get the training. They can send them off-site to get the training, and we'll cover the cost of that.
The other one is, what is going to prohibit the employer from receiving the funds for the training and then releasing the employee since the 6 months retention is waived?
And can you ask that again? I didn't catch the first part of that.
Sure. The question is from Dalry is, what is going to prevent an employer from receiving the funds for training and then releasing the employee since the 6 months retention is waived?
Well, a couple of things. One, an employer, we're not trying to make an employer hold on to someone that they have, wanted to part with right now during the COVID environment. We know that because of what's happening right now, unemployment is going to fluctuate. So we wanted to make sure that we were not handicapping an employer on that end. But the way that we actually see it from an employee standpoint, now that employee has the training. That employee actually has the benefit of the training, and they can move along to another employer in a better way because now they have a certification or a skill that they may not have had prior to the training.
The question is, once I get my application in, am I on my own to move things forward, or is there support from DWD available?
There is support available. Once an employer completes the application process, or even going through the application process, we have what we call a business services team, and a business services representative is assigned to each employer, and that business services rep walks through everything with them every step of the way. And they even provide follow-up services and connections after they have the employee who's going through a training program. They need some additional services, and the business services representatives can actually help navigate even additional items for them, because there may be different programs that employer may be eligible for that may not be in our wheelhouse, but our services rep will be able to guide them through that. So they're not on their own. Our goal is to make sure that we walk with employers and individuals every step of the way.
A couple other questions here, my friend. This one is from Jean. She says, I'm a provider of workforce readiness and succession planning assessments How can I reach the 180 skills partners to see if I can support them as a minority woman-owned business?
I think reach out to us online and maybe shoot that question over to one of our business services reps. At the end of the slide presentation, there were a couple of names up for the individuals or businesses to reach out to, so they can reach out to us and we can do some follow-up.
All right, we got time for a couple more questions if you folks want to get one in. Here's one for you, Fred. When it comes to the different sectors listed, can the training also be related to that training? In other words, I'm in the healthcare sector, but I'm doing training or need training for a bookkeeping or IT person. Can the sectors and positions be crossed?
Yeah, I think the nature of this question really is along the lines of, let's say I'm a hospital and I'm in the healthcare services industry, and I want to train someone for IT or something else. Yes, that's a part of that business. That's a part of the training that business needs to keep running or to advance. So we provide that training. The training is, we break it down to occupational codes, but not necessarily occupations within a business. So the answer to that question is yes, they can kind of cross-pollinate. You can move over an industry within a company.
And this one here, my friend, is a little tricky, so I'm going to try to play with it just a little bit. How is the state's workforce development coping with COVID-19 overall?
That's a good question, and there's a multifaceted answer to the question. On the one hand, we have, and I'm going to use the word unprecedented, and it's been used an unprecedented number of times. What we're seeing is we have a lot of unemployment, people who are out of work who didn't choose to be out of work, and none of us chose to be in the COVID environment. So you have that piece. Then you have employers who are trying to really recover right now. And so they're looking for employees, but a lot of them are having to really figure out how to do business differently. And so they're recruiting, although, recruiting someone for certain jobs where the person has to be there, a manufacturing job and a welder, the recruiting is about the same. But for some of these jobs, the composition of your day is a little different. Now they're remote. So employers are doing a little bit different things differently when it comes to recruiting. So overall, our economy, we're down at 11.2% unemployment. We know that's one of the highest we've ever been in this state. So that kind of speaks for itself. In terms of employers really trying to figure out how to cope with this environment and trying to access resources, I really do see employers engage a little bit more, and probably out of necessity. They're engaging much more with government services, and they're partnering with other like companies to figure this thing out than I've ever seen before. So there's a lot of camaraderie that's taking place now, although there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of awareness being put out for the resources that are available to employees and employers. I mentioned this maybe a week or so ago. We do see things internally with some metrics that we have that are looking positive in terms of the unemployment claims that are being filed, and more employers are calling people back to work. So those are positive signs that we're seeing. But a lot of times we'll see those kind of ebb and flow. Next week may be a high week or it may be a low week. But one of the things that employers are taking advantage of that we've seen so far is that they're taking advantage of the virtual job fairs that are around the state. I know IBE has engaged in some virtual job fairs. We're having some virtual job fairs. So their recruiting methods have been different overall. So that was a long-winded answer to you.
Not a problem. Last couple of questions here. This one was originally for Governor Holcomb. We'll see if you can answer it. Otherwise, we'll just forward it to the governor's office. The The question is about grant disbursement status of the Ready to Restart programs and those grants for businesses to get PPE. What's going on with that particular program?
That program is run out of the IEDC, so I don't want to give any incorrect numbers for that program. But what I can say on this side of the house with the rapid recovery, we have already over 900 employers over 400 employers who have started engaging with us on the employer training grant side of the house on the rapid recovery piece. And we've obligated over 12 million of the $15 million. So employers are getting training done right now. That's what I take from just those numbers.
All right. Unless anyone else has any other questions for the Director Payne, Commissioner Payne. All right, sir, we are good. Thank you very much for your time and effort to energy today.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Not a problem. And for those of you at home, we appreciate all of you participating today. Please take a moment to fill out our survey and tell us about your experience. Also, please be sure to suggest future topics or guests for our Minority Business Series. And don't forget the website that the governor gave. I got it right here because I wrote it down. It is iedc.in.gov, iedc.in.gov. On behalf of the Governor, Department of Workforce Development, Indiana Black Expo, our sponsors, I'm Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, attorney at Lewis & Wilkins and editor of IndyPolitics.org. My pleasure for being here today. Thank you all very much for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care and have a good day.